Black Friday has started, and this guy already made a purchase. Was it emotional? Was it logical? Well, we're going to talk about that because there's a lot of deals coming, and I know a lot of people out there are probably trying to restrain themselves. I'm going to give you some tips on not to do what I did. Let's talk about it. Welcome back to another video. My name is Nikos. Today we're talking about gas. Not that gas, but the gear acquisition syndrome type of gas. It's an actual issue that all of us face when we start to buy gear, especially camera gear. Basically, you're buying based on what you see, based on what you think is going to be awesome for you, and then you buy it, and then it's not what you expect, and then you put it aside, and then you move to the next one. And as such, you go through this roller coaster until you realize that, hey, I don't need to be doing this anymore. But you're still going to do it here and there. So Black Friday is a great example. You see the deal and you go, I've always wanted that. And then your logic goes out the window and your emotions take over and you go, click. This is the simplest way of reviewing this idea and how it relates to what is happening with most people at this time. Now, fear of missing out is a big aspect of this, and as such, this is something that emotions have to be controlled in. How do we actually do that? And how do we make sure that we buy the things we need versus the things we want? How do we buy things that we're investing in versus the things that we are spending and we're not going to be using to the degree of a need or an investment for us. Now, in my situation, it's Black Friday is starting up here in Canada like it is in the States, so a lot of deals are happening. And of course, Vistek, the big camera supplier here, they have their annual Profusion event, and they have big deals on certain things. And of course, I was looking for a replacement of or upgrading my gear, you would say, for cameras. And I've just been sitting there going, okay, when are the deals going to come? And should I switch to Sony or not? And it's been a big thing in my mind if I should be switching to Sony, because it's a big switch for me. Like, I'm a Canon, and I'm just kind of like, everybody knows how, like, it's a big switch. So you sit there and you're like, all right, I'm going to be looking for deals, and we're going to see what direction we're going to take. Now, the logic here is that I'm going to make a list of what I'm going to be doing with the decision making if I see the deals, and what is the item that I am really going to be focused on buying, and what are the other ones that I may or may not buy. Now, what I do is I look at it and I say to myself, if I find the price point at the estimate of what I think it will be at, then I will pull the trigger. And it has to be within a couple base points. So for example, here in Canada, the Canon R6 has not been on sale for less than $32.99, $31.99. So I said to myself, if I find it for $29.99 to $30.50, then I will make the purchase. If it's anything more, I will not make the purchase. If it's anything less, I pull the trigger, don't even think about it. This allows me to make an easier decision. Now, with the lens, I wasn't planning on buying both. I was planning to buy one of these things. I was expecting the lens to go on sale before the camera. I thought the camera would be in the package with another lens, and I'm like, I don't want to go sell any lenses. I just want some specific lenses. So I was just expecting to see the lens on sale, but then they both went on sale, and I was like, Now the issue was, do I buy a 15 to 35? Do I buy a 24 to 70? And the emotional side of Nikos was saying, buy the 24 to 70. But then when the Canon R6 came up for sale as well, I was like, I kind of need the 15 to 35. Now, I am shooting on a 16 to 35, an EF version, and I'm like, that might be a better scenario for me. But when I go out and I do certain shoots, I need that 24 to 70, and I don't have one. And I'm like, okay, where's the logic here? So again, the logical list is there. Now, emotions come into play. If I have this variable in there, now I can look at it and I can calm down my emotions a lot easier. And I can say, yo, calm down, because we're not within the value of what we're seeing. We've already made the decision on a logical mindset where we're not emotional on the list so I can reference back to it. So I have it ready and I'm like, boom, I can make the decision. I calm down my emotions. Now, where did I go into this emotional thought process where I was like, man, I'm coaching people on this stuff and I got caught into this? Well, I found myself in that place where I was like, maybe I should just replace my Canon R as well and get two bodies. And at that, I was like, hey, I haven't seen the deals on these lenses in such, like, since they were released. So why not just buy the 15 to 35 as well? This is where my mind went. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, where's my budget at? What am I talking about? Emotions had taken over. Now, I got on the phone to talk to a buddy of mine so I can go through my workflow so we can see, hey, should I buy one lens or the other? And he's just kind of like, he was like, yo, idiot, what are you talking about? Back to your logic. What is your workflow? So we talked through it. And it was just like, all right, what am I doing? Let's be logical about this because I am planning on switching to Sony and I don't know when I'm going to do it. And if Canon comes out with something better that I can utilize for my workflow, that might change. However, I'm just sitting there going, oh, that A7S III is looking pretty good. It's just this scenario where I am launching a business, doing all this stuff. So I don't have time to just be like, I'm going to sell everything and then buy new. So it's just kind of like, okay, let's take a step back. How is this all going to fit the narrative? Most of the used market right now, you cannot buy like anything on the cheap. They're all selling like the Canon. I'm on Kijiji and all these sites, and the Canon R6 is selling for cost, like the price I would pay at the store minus the taxes. And you're like, what is going on? Usually they're cheaper. The R, same thing. So and this is where the mindset came on replacing the R, because I'm like, I can replace the R and for $800 more, I get an R6 and I'll have two of those. I don't have to worry about the compatibilities with the coloring and this and that. If I do use any of the different features, it's like, but then I thought to myself, what am I doing? Like, take a step back. I need 30 megapixels. So again, logic, investment, spending, emotions. Okay, we're looking at this and we're saying, how do we compete in that mind of ours to make sure that we are making logical decisions? Why? Because once we make a logical decision, we will be happy with the decision long term. Where if we make an emotional decision, well, the probability of you being happy long term will not be as high as a logical decision. Why do I say this? Well, basically, if you're making an emotional decision, you're making decisions where there's a risk factor in there of something happening down the road. For instance, your budget. You might not have a budget for everything, yet you increase that budget. And then when the credit card comes, you're like, oh, I got to pay this down now. And this puts a damper in your mindset of how you're going to move forward, and it could kill the opportunity you have to be successful with whatever you were planning on doing with the purchases you made anyways. I've seen this happen. I saw it last year. I saw it with people who bought the R6 and the R5 when it came out. They went nuts. They were like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. And then they saw the heating issues. And it was like, oh, regret. We didn't wait to see what's happening. They pre-ordered it, and then what happened? Sony comes out, and it's like, yo, hold my beer, okay? And this is simple economics. This is simple economics of life. You got to take a step back, and you got to look at this, and you got to say, am I making decisions based on wants or needs? And then look at it in terms of, hey, what is the aspect of the logical decision versus the emotional decision? How does this make sense overall? I did see these people. I saw a couple buddies of mine buy the A7S III. If they didn't buy it, I would not be sitting here going, I should buy the A7S III. I've been happy with Canon. I don't need more than that. But then I saw that, and now my needs changed because I was like, oh, I can do that and that. That's amazing. And I know I can use that. I can utilize it. But how often am I going to use it? Now, what did my buddies do? They went out and they're like, okay, we bought it, paid an arm and a leg for it. Here's my biggest problem now. I need the new cards to take advantage of certain features. Those cost like $400, $500 each. All right, now we got another dilemma. We got to spend another $1,000. So this cycle of bad decision making, because they weren't expecting that to be an issue, and then all of a sudden, that decision that was emotional, the risk factor went up on being a decision that was going to turn into a bad one, or at least a negative one, and then all of a sudden, they realize more money, more issues. More money, more issues. And then at top of that, at the time, we were just opening up from our lockdown. So they weren't having as many business transactions as they usually would. So it was a challenge in the mindset. Big challenge. So I want to take a step back. I want to look at this idea and just address this for everybody that's watching, because I know people go through this. And I wanted to make this video because I found myself today almost wanting to make bigger purchases. And it was just kind of like, what are you doing? Like, take a step back. Now, that being said, I've made the purchases. I can return them if I decide to buy Sony. I have 30 days as long as I don't open them. So I have decision making that way. That's one. If I do open them, I can sell them at cost. So I have two logical decisions there where I feel with my purchases, I'm good. I have no complaints with the purchases. However, I can now take some time to think about everything as I'm going to move forward through the Black Friday deals, and I might see Sony, or I might see another Canon R6 deal with a particular lens on, or just the Canon R6, and then I'm going to be like, you know what? Let's pull the trigger and replace the R. But I got to go and put everything on sale. So that was part of my logical decision making. I will not keep that camera unless I put everything on sale. So I'm making myself accountable, which is the last thing of all this conversation. And I'm going to let you go because of course I dragged it on for too long, but it's accountability. And how accountable are you going to be with a decision making strategy you're putting into play? If you don't have a good accountability measure, then what is your actual win? That's it. That's what you got to ask yourself. So what is going to be your accountability measure for any decision you're making? Now, for me, it's like looking at it and saying, okay, I'm going to take responsibility for the decisions I'm making. All right, so take a step back. What does that really mean? And then it's the accountability. What are you going to do to be accountable for the decisions you're making? Now, in that process, what I like to do is have that go-to person to have a conversation with. When I called my buddy, I was like, yo, let me walk you through the workflow. And are there any ideas for us to be able to put into play here to justify what I'm about to do? And it was like, no. And it's like, all right, back to logic, investment. Where is the investment? And this is the pretty much the whole idea behind here. It is making sure you have that accountability measure so that you can make sure you're making the right purchase. I will not keep the camera unless I put everything up for sale and get it sold. I'm going to put in a nice package. I'm going to get my money for it. And basically, it's going to be paying off most of the new camera. We're good to go. The R, it might have to take that process as well. Then it makes just clockwork sense for me to move forward and not be disappointed in the decisions I'm making. Again, investment is the goal instead of the idea of wasting money. We don't want to be spending it and wasting it and not making good decisions, because at the end of the day, it's going to affect our workflow, it's going to affect our mindset, our creativity, and we're not going to be able to achieve the things we're planning on achieving. My name is Nikos. Leave your comment below on how you make purchases, what you're planning on buying. Is it one of those times to wait because of what's happening with the pandemic and how everything is flowing? State your opinion on this, because somebody might be watching this and might be about to make a bad decision, and they might read your comment and you might save them from making a bad decision.